Hello beauties, welcome back to the vlog. This week we are talking about mentoring, whether or not you may want to choose a mentor, if it's right for you, some lessons that I've learned along the way, and today we're going to talk about what professional development is. Mentoring is one tool in the toolbox of professional development. And a lot of people think, well, continuous education is part of that. Sometimes it is. But professional development really comes in many different ways. It can be used to expand your role or to get promoted to do a different type of position in a company. It can be used to get higher rates of pay or to be in management positions. So it can be done for career growth and for a climb in your career. But it's also done to help you fill in skills like leadership or how to manage tasks, time management, how to interact with direct reports, how to manage budgets, and so on. So it can have very practical knowledge to it, and it also can be very academic. It just depends on what industry you're in and how it's applied to what you're doing. There are a number of ways that people do professional development. I'm just going to talk about a couple of them. So the case study method is very, very common. We see this a lot in an industry like ours as well, where you look at an example or two or a handful of examples of things that have occurred, and then you try to problem solve from those examples. What would you have done if you were in that situation? Would you have solved the problem the same way, or would you have taken a different approach? You know, the why or why not. So the case study methodology can be really helpful, and it's also very helpful after you've gone through an experience to write that down and document what went well and what didn't go well so that you can grow from that in the future. Another one is bringing in a consultant. Sometimes there's an area of expertise you might not have in a team or in your company, in your nonprofit organization, where you really want to bring someone in. For example, the transition we're having at Lunar will require some skill sets that we don't have in our company right now. We might want to bring in and consult with some high-level data scientists and have them help us learn some of the questions we should be asking. And that's a great way to get professional development. We gain from their expertise, but we don't need to have all of that expertise in each individual person who does that. So it can help us there. Coaching is a really common one, although I think coaching is something that is can be very challenging. You know, you can really be benefited by having a great coach, someone who helps coach you up through a company and helps you grow and helps you learn where you can improve skills. And then there's also being coached out. Maybe it's time for you to move on and someone that can help you find the next path for you. So coaching can help you grow, and it can also help you realize what your path should be. But getting the right person in that role can be challenging. Mentoring is definitely a part of professional development, but as I talked about yesterday, one of the things that's really important from my perspective with mentoring is to be open and ready for it. So one of the nice things about a case study is that it's a little bit distant from us, right? We can look at a case study and say, wow, I'm looking at this other situation that maybe didn't involve me. I don't have to be necessarily very self-reflective when learning from a case study. In a consultation, again, we can be held at a distance a little bit. We don't have to have a lot of self-reflection. When you get into coaching, it starts to break down some of those barriers, and you have to be more open, share more of yourself. If you're going to get into mentoring, you're really setting a goal for yourself and determining what that success looks like for you. And it's very personal from my perspective to work with a mentor. And you really want to be in a place where you're able to be honest with yourself, to have compassion for yourself for the things that, if you're me, I might view as, I might say, well, I have flaws that I want to look at. And someone else might say, well, maybe those are strengths. Let's talk about how to change your perspective. And to be able to be open about that and honest about that can be really intimidating, especially if the mentor is not known to you. The other thing with mentoring is to be able to receive that feedback and to apply it to your life and be open to it. And also to know when to say, I'm not going to take that advice or take that feedback. Thank you so much. So mentoring is a much more personal thing, and you really do want to be ready for that and be able to commit to it. And then what I found is that both the mentor and the mentee mutually help each other. So it should be a relationship of reciprocation and mutual respect and so on. But we'll talk more about a mentor relationship later this week. And then certainly there's other things in professional development, like having a team pairing or having supervision where someone sits with you, technical support, that sort of thing. I'm not going to get into that for this week, but for future consideration, and what we'll talk about for the rest of this week is how do you determine that you're ready for a mentor? How do you choose that mentor? And then how do you really experience that in a way that is successful for you? I'll see you tomorrow.